Hi, this is Tom Mayers, and I've got this new Sony RX 100 camera, and I'm just trying it out. I have a Rode microphone on it, and I just like to experiment with these cameras when I get them, and they sit in a drawer. You can't learn anything, and you need to use them. So I'm just going to show you one of my projects here I'm working on. They're always interesting to me. I don't know how many people that will be interested in this, but it's a repair, and where we live here is right next to the salt water on the west coast of Florida, and we have houses that were built on low ground, you know, where they actually filled on top of mangrove swamp and then made land back in the 40s and the 50s and the 30s, and that's the way they did it back then. And so what happens is that you have a lot of organic matter in the soil, and over time that breaks down, and when that breaks down, it hurts the foundation to the house. So you have like a concrete foundation, and then you have block walls on top of the concrete foundation. So as the organic matter breaks down and the ground level changes, there gets to be cracks in the wall. So it's my job to try to fix some of these places. That's our motto here, is kind of patch it up. We have a lot of buildings that are 50, 60, 70 years old, and once you got into it, I mean, you'd probably have to tear the whole thing down and start from scratch if you were going to do it right, whatever that is. But in order to maintain what we have, we just try to patch it. So I use epoxy. Epoxy has worked really well with me in boat work, housework, all kinds of work. You know, the epoxy is just sort of a universal bonding agent and sealer. So I'll show you my project right now, and hopefully you'll find this interesting, and maybe it'll help some people who have similar problems with cracks in the wall between cement block. So I'll show you the project right now. So it's unique in that I was the owner of these apartments for about 10, 15 years, 20 years, and I rented them out. I guess I was 20 years, and I rented them out, and for years I worked on maintaining them, and now I sold them to my sister, and so I'm doing the maintenance work for her, so it's not much has changed. So here's the wall, and as you can see, we have stucco, on the wall here, and here's the crack. So what we do is just try to drill out the crack. I'll just show you just to illustrate what we're doing, and take a battery operated drill, because I would rather use something smaller, and I don't want to damage the wall, but I go in this crack here. So I've already spent an hour or more doing this, preparing this, but basically this is the project right here, is to ream out the crack and make it larger without damaging it. So the idea is that if you use a larger power drill, I have a 1/2-inch large drill that and a bigger bit, but I just don't want to damage anything more. My project here is just to patch and repair. So this is what it looks like. You can see the area here, the crack. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix some epoxy up, and I'm really just trying this microphone out, this Rode microphone. I just bought it. So the microphone on the camera seemed pretty good, but for $50–60, you know, to add something. So as you go down this wall, you go down the wall here, you'll see some area that we've repaired. So this has been repaired, and this had big cracks in it. And with epoxy, we just repaired the cracks. And so, you know, that's the project where we don't need to do anything. We're just going to go ahead and put on a coat of paint, but we're trying to keep it from, causing structural problems. And here's a wall that we've patched and repaired and painted. So you get an idea of what the end product looks like. And as we look at this was done a couple of years ago. You can see right here, there's another crack coming up. So that is something we'll just have to explore, just chip away at. And as we go around the corner here, these are all repair jobs. So you can see right there, there's a crack that that we need to look at. And it's something that was repaired, but there's always a possibility that something's going to crop back up. Here's another crack right here, just a small area. But by doing maintenance and putting epoxy in these cracks, we just ream them out with the drill bit, and then use the epoxy to fill them up and bond them. So here's another one that has a crack going around. So this had quite a bad crack before, and what we'd have to do here is just go back over this and repair it. And you can see this crack has gone over around here. So short of doing something major, opening that up, filling it with epoxy, it's certainly not going to hurt. So that's what I'm doing today, and I hope that this helps somebody. Yeah. All right. Here we are working on this crack. It's about an hour later. I filled the crack with epoxy, and I used filler in the epoxy. I used Sisal, calcium carbonate, which we call marble dust, and then cellulose fibers. So I've used all kinds of fibers for filling, and I sort of freestyle and mix them up as I want it. But you're gonna have to tend this, and what happens is you want to make it thin enough so that it seeps into all the cracks, and not so thin that it all drains out. So I call this tending what I'm doing. So I'm tending the stuff I put in here, just going and checking it, forcing it back in the cracks as it drains out. But it's just the way it's supposed to be. You can see I took the excess here and used it as a substitute to cover up where the stucco was peeling off. So this is all epoxy here, and like I said, I'm going to come back and do it later, go over it later, but right now it's doing exactly what it should do, which is it's draining out, and I'm putting it back in. And so this is the way we've been patching the concrete here, and they did the local bridge work, and when they were working on the concrete pilings, they used epoxy. I watched them use it. So basically it's pretty much a standard industrial use. I think boat building is just one use for epoxy. I think it's far, you know, far more uses in construction and house building and doing basketball courts. But epoxy is a good thing. This is 828 Hexion epoxy, and we'll use a 3274 filler, hardener, and been using it for years. It works really well, and like I said, the fillers are something you can use. I've even used kitty litter and flour. So it depends on what you want to fill. If you have a big fill that you need to make and you need a real coarse filler, it's difficult to get filler. You have to order from bigger companies to get it. But like I said, flour is something that seemed to work pretty good as a filler. When we ran out one day, I just used some flour and it seemed to work pretty well. And other than that, cotton fibers, bamboo fibers, all of those things work. So I'm going to just finish tending this, which is just coming back. This is an hour after I started it, and pushing stuff back in. And I've been tending it all along, but I just took a break to change my clothes. It's a good idea when you're working with epoxy, because epoxy doesn't come off very easily. So if you change your clothes and get a new set of clothes, that's a good idea. So anyway, I'm going to reach over and get some of this. And again, this was just using the excess that I had from the filling the crack, and I just had some stucco that was peeling off here, and I want to try to blend it back in. So I'm just picking up some of this, what was excess, and filling in some of these cracks that it's draining out of. So, you know, in an emergency, if you had to, you could use sand, you could use pine cones, you could use, you know, little Australian pine cones. Use any number of things as a filler in this epoxy. And I probably used 20 or 30 fillers over the years, and I think my go-to or my standard one is calcium carbonate's good, sawdust is good, just a variety of things. And in this crack where it was draining out and I had some problems, I just put in some little sticks. I just made like sticks, maybe little teeny 1/8 inch by 1/8 inch, 5-6 inches long, and you can just break them off into place, and that helps to keep the stuff from draining out that you see draining out. And like I said, when this is done, when this gets dry, we'll go back over it with a grinder, and we'll fill it in and make it try to blend it all in. So this is the crack. This is what we've been doing, and this is not the first crack we filled. This is one I just wanted to demonstrate a good way to patch concrete block cracks. And again, the foundation is built on an old mangrove swamp where they dredged and filled, and over the years the organic matter's breaking down, and it's causing all of this to sort of settle, and the concrete block is just rigid. It doesn't, it cracks, it doesn't bend. So that's what we're doing, and so that's it. This is the next step in the filling of the crack, and I'll go over the whole thing with a grinder, clean it up, and then we'll just put a finish coat of epoxy over this so that it evens out all the things. So that's it. I hope you found this useful, and maybe it'll help somebody fix something someday.